minute to go, so I'm going to start the recording. And let me see if we can go live on Facebook now. Simon, you can let all the people in the waiting room in. Okay, we're preparing to go live. And here we are, live on Facebook. Okay. Can everybody hear me on Zoom? Okay, sound check. Can everybody hear me on Zoom? Yes, no?
Yes.
Perfect, because I've had to mute Facebook Live. So, right. So, Saima, I have to make you the full host now because, right, maybe I don't need to. I think we'll go ahead with this. Okay, we seem to have a house full. I'm just going to do one more check to see how Facebook is. Can someone verify for me if I am audible on Facebook? Because I've had to put it to mute on Facebook, put my audio to mute on Facebook. Saima, could you perhaps check?
Well,
Can I have the link to here for Facebook?
Can you hear me on Facebook? Perfect. Thank you for confirming, Christine. So we seem to be ready to go. Let me get back to my Zoom window and share our beautiful screen. Right, okay. So I promise you, I'll try not to do a lot of PowerPoint, but welcome everybody to this evening's session. This is our very, very first session on a virtual book launch on English language teaching in Pakistan. That is our Springer Nature publication, recently published. We have a lot of enterprising authors in this publication. And tonight we have some really important colleagues and friends who've supported the publication in many, many different ways. And so they're going to talk about it. So there'll be a lot of me talking because I'm hosting this session, but I'll try to keep it short so that all my friends can give their insight on how they've contributed to this publication. Very briefly, the agenda is a little bit like this. So first of all, tonight we will talk about, I say tonight because it is past 6 p.m. where we are, but some of us are in other parts of the world. So thank you for joining us at odd hours. So first of all, we will talk about the publication, a little bit about what it is. And then I'll share a little bit about what the journey was like. This will be followed by all the amazing people who supported the publication. They will talk a little bit about their insights. And then we have an important session on what can we possibly do as Pakistani ELT professionals to research our way forward, moving forward from here. And finally, towards the end of this session, I have two amazing and incredible people who've been patrons right from the start of our journey. So we'll have them share a few insights. And then question answers. Yes, of course. While you're tuning in and listening to us, you're very welcome to put your questions in the chat box. I do have a co-host who's looking at all the questions. And somewhere in about 30 or 40 minutes, we will be looking at the questions and giving the audience stage time so that you can ask your questions. In the meantime, if you prefer, you are welcome to post them on Facebook Live or on Zoom. We will keep track of those. Saima is our co-host tonight, and she will help me with that. And finally, we will talk a little bit about opportunities. Now, here's what I'd like to do. Let me stop sharing my screen and take you forward. Okay, it seems I can't minimize my screen, so we will carry on here. So first of all, allow me to introduce our very first speaker for tonight. I would like to introduce Dr. Christine Coombe, and I'd like you to just bear with me for a moment. We were just talking about how we are all technically challenged in many ways, and that is exactly what's happening here, but do bear with me for a moment. And I am going to just shift gears from being the host. And that should help me now, right? So what I'd like to share with you is, first of all, our very first speaker, Dr. Christine Coombe, amazing person, friend, colleague, and mentor. And a lot of you here tonight know her pretty well. So Dr. Coombe is a PhD holder in foreign and second language education from the Ohio State University, and she is currently an associate professor of general studies at Dubai Men's College in the UAE. She has an incredible number of 50 plus books on various topics in TESOL or English language teaching. Mashallah to that, as we say in this part of the world. Now, Dr. Coombe has lived and worked in the Gulf for the past 29 years. During her term here, she has won many awards. Let me just share a few of those. The 2002 SPAN Fellowship for Research in Second or Foreign Language Assessment, the 2002-2003 TESOL, a TOEFL Outstanding Young Scholar Award, the Chancellor's Teacher of the Year Award for 2003-2004, the British Council's International Assessment Award for 2013, and she was recently named to TESOL's 50 at 50, which recognizes professionals who have made significant contributions to the TESOL profession within the past 50 years. I find that quite inspiring. She is also the 2018 recipient of the James E. Aladis Award, which recognizes exemplary service to TESOL, another source of inspiration. Her most recent honor was being named to the US Department of State's 30 English language specialists in 2021. Now, this list that I've just mentioned recognizes English language specialists who have made an impact on the teaching and training of ELTs around the world in the last 30 years. So Dr. Coombe has also served as TESOL International Association's president and was a member of the TESOL Board of Directors 2010 to 2013. I'm now inviting Dr. Christine Coombe, my dear friend and colleague, to open the session and give us some background on how the idea behind this publication was conceived, why we felt the need for a book on Pakistan, and how it forms part of a much larger project. Over to you, Dr. Coombe.
Thank you, Dr. Naziha. I'm happy to be here with everyone tonight. And in fact, the poster, it's kind of like, I don't know, a who's who in ELT in Pakistan. And I have to say, in thinking back in my, to my history of providing professional development and later on this publication for Pakistan, it was Zakia Sarwar who invited me to SPELT. Everybody is familiar with the Great SPELT Conference and Professional Association. I can't even remember what year it was. And I'm not sure if Dr. Sabia Mansour is here. She was the first person who welcomed me into her home when I came to SPELT so many years ago. Well, since then, my interest in ELT in Pakistan and providing professional development for Pakistani teachers was, I don't know, it began and it's been growing ever since. And I think at last count, I've been to Pakistan on professional development and or conference trips 15 times. So during each of those times, and especially my later involvement with Vista Brains, which is the company that Dr. Dina Khan, Dr. Naziha Ali, and Hafiz Rahman started a professional development program with a focus on women as well. And I believe that was about 8 years ago when I made my first trip. And since then, maybe 7 or 8 trips I've been to Lahore, Wazirabad, which is the training center where we've done many of the training programs for Pakistani teachers. And during this time, we also visited many schools in the area, as well as higher educational institutions like the superior schools, like the University of Sialkot, etc. So lots of different encounters with what's going on in ELT from a research perspective on the Pakistani landscape. So I think our first the idea was born with regard to there needs to be some kind of mechanism for the dissemination and the showcasing of lots of good research currently going on in the Pakistani higher educational context. So the idea for this book was born. In parallel, I feel it's really important to showcase research from different geographical areas as well. So I thought the book co-edited by Dr. Naziha and myself would be the perfect first book in my series with Springer, which focuses on research in specific geographical contexts. So since the Pakistan book, which was published, I believe, February this year, that was #1 in my series. In March, the second book, which is focusing on research in the UAE, came out in March. And the third, which is focusing on ELT research in the European Union, edited by Lee McCallum, will come out in July, I think. And we have other books that are kind of in the works for Africa, for Central and Latin South America, Asia, etc. And we've even been talking about another book that would encompass other regions, like combining research from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, India. We're still mulling over that idea. So if there's anybody here who has an idea and is based in an area and would like to perhaps edit a book in this series, we'd be happy to hear from you. So basically, the book and the series kind of evolved around the same time. And I'm really proud of how the book came out. We've got, and although we'll talk I think Naziha will introduce you very briefly to 5 themes of research that emerged in the putting together of this edited volume. And we hear that there are lots more research that's currently going on, not only from teachers teaching in Pakistani context, but from Pakistani scholars abroad doing research in other geographical contexts. So hopefully this is the first and what I hope will be a series of books or numerous volumes showcasing research done by Pakistani scholars, in addition to teaming up with international collaborations as well. So there you have it. My kind of ideas about how this book evolved. And it wasn't just us sitting down saying, hey, let's do a book. It was the result, as many books are, of discussions among scholars over the course of, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years before the book materialized. So back to you, Naziha. I'm not sure if you have anything more you'd like to add.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christine. So that was a great initial insight into how we actually got started. And the one thing that stands out for me is the fact that you've mentioned that it took us 5 to 6 years of initial discussions, which is really key here. So I'm going to start at that point where I would like to share a little insight on how the journey began, the actual process, and some challenges, and of course rewards, and then looking forward. So quite interestingly, I know you've said that you had initiated a series of a discussion around a series that was kind of global, which is exactly what's happening now. You've got 2 publications done in that series, and I know there's another 2 on the way, which is quite exciting because a lot of the people who are involved in editing or co-editing these works are my friends from the network that we've created together. Now, you'll be amazed to know, everybody, that the original idea was conceived at the Sialkot International Airport one evening, where Dr. Christine Coombe and our dear friend Peter Davidson and we were waiting in the departure lounge to get on board a flight back to Dubai, because we'd been to Wazirabad to do a weekend training that we did as part of our volunteer outreach teacher community, teacher development projects. And this was just a casual discussion. And then it turned into a verbal proposal. And I immediately typed it on my mobile phone and emailed it to us and promised to revisit and edit it by the time we got back, which is exactly what I did. So that was October 2018. And then over the next few weeks, we worked on the proposal, finalized it, and then decided to approach everybody we knew to contribute to it. But that process took us long because, of course, we had day jobs and other things to do in our lives. And then we just took a step back after a few months to take stock of what exactly is it that we wanted from this publication. That's when we decided to open it up globally and to everyone who had touched the Pakistani ELT context in any way, which meant that teachers in other countries who were dealing with Pakistani students or teachers in Pakistan who work with Pakistani students, anyone who had any association with the context. So that's when we got some amazing work coming in. Now, the process actually took quite a while because number one, for me, it was a very first international publication. I do not belong to a family of academics. And so I had fewer role models at home in terms of this process. You know, I'd done my doctorate, but my professional friends were the only role models I had. And then my workplace was a corporate environment, not an academic institution. So there were fewer expectations there, which made me totally comfortable. You know how we settle in and say, well, life is good, let's get on. So that is the situation I was in. But when Dr. Coombe and our dear friend Peter mentioned this, I jumped at the idea because I'd been trying to publish for a while. And we know those amongst us who are Pakistani academics, we are aware of the continuous changes in our educational context and the expectations of the Higher Education Commission, which are sometimes uncertain. So that is the situation I was dealing with. However, this came along at the right time. The process definitely took us long. There were some challenges, and I am going to share those with you. Now, first of all, I'd like to share this with you to look at the text in bold and see why we felt the need for that. Quite simply, first of all, because we'd been coming to Pakistan so often since 2007, and we'd met so many people, we really wanted to compile some kind of research articles related to all aspects of teaching, learning, assessment, and teacher training, because we had seen potential among the teachers that we trained. Secondly, we wanted to feature the latest research in ELT from Pakistan, because there was a lot going on and we became aware of that. But a lot of that was within the country. That was our perception because we lived in other countries and we didn't seem to come across a lot of this work internationally. And it was impressive work. Then we wanted to include contributions from all levels of the educational spectrum, and then showcase it to the outside world so that they would become aware of what is happening in ELT in Pakistan. That was the most exciting part. So as Dr. Coombe said about a minute ago, that I will share with you the segments or the sections in our publication. This is what we received. These are the areas in which all our contributing authors were working or researching and documenting their work. So we had CPD, language policy, ESL writing, very impressive work there. Innovative approaches, people doing different things in their contexts, identity construction, curriculum reform, a lot of work on that, on policy changing suggestions, and then contextual pedagogy and methodology. So impressive work started to come in, but this took a period of 3 years. Well, this slide contains the contents page. We'll be happy to share that with you. It's tiny text, so I'm just going to skip it for now. Now, because I love talking about this experience, it's been something really interesting to me. I'm definitely going to share with you the challenges, because sometimes we see the happy ending and the great package that the publication comes in, and we really aren't aware of the challenges that people might have actually experienced. Now, a lot of the challenges were related to our lives, because life happens between 2018, when we actually thought about the publication, we conceived the idea, and 2022, when the first copy came to Dr. Coombe and she actually held it in her hands. This is what happened. First of all, I had to drop everything and move to Pakistan. That was a big change. So I lost about a year there, and that's when the actual abstracts were coming in. The following year, very sadly, and I hope Dr. Coombe doesn't mind me mentioning that here, we lost her dad at a very critical time. So that was another setback. It was a difficult time for Dr. Coombe, who is a very important person in this publication, and for me too, because I was working with her. And then came COVID, 2019-20. Travel stopped, communication became difficult. We struggled. Our publisher had a setback, so we couldn't do, communication was ineffective. It took much longer. It took months to respond to each other. And our families got affected because we had people suffering from COVID at home. And then by the time the end product was ready, according to us, the external reviewers had additional demands. So we were required to look at the chapters over and over again, additional reviews. So that was a big challenge. And finally, what's sad and amusing at the moment is the publication hit the shelves in 2022 February. However, I still do not have a copy that I can call my own. And a lot of our authors in Pakistan who are probably logged in today do not have their copies. So we're still waiting. So there are those delays to deal with. Plus, some copies got shipped elsewhere, some copies didn't arrive. So we are communicating, as of today, still communicating with the publisher to help us get our copies, which are somewhere on the way. Having said that, the rewards are many, and what I'll put up on the slide now is something that I believe most of my co-authors hopefully will agree with. First of all, was this challenging? Yes, indeed it was. Absolutely challenging. Will I do this again? Will you guys do this again? Yes, we will. We will publish again because it's exciting. I've learned a lot. And I keep saying I because I consider myself still on the learning curve in comparison to my fabulous co-editor and the amazing people who've endorsed this publication. Now, the biggest and the most important thing that I hope Dr. Coombe will touch on later as well when I have a question for her is what exactly is needed when you go through this process of publication. Patience, patience, patience. Perseverance, you can't stop. This has been my learning point. Number two, timely and effective communication strategies. Sometimes we experience delays of weeks in communicating with each other amongst the authors, with the publisher. So I believe you really have to be on top of this. And this is I'm sharing this for my colleagues who are still fairly new to the process of publishing books like me. And then you definitely need an eye for detail. There was a lot of review work that was involved, but I enjoyed it surprisingly, and I'm super proud of that. And then courage and commitment. There were times when I just wanted to shelve the project, but you need to be really brave about it because the end product and my current situation, as you can all see, as is the situation of my co-authors, we're all very excited that it's right there now. So you need courage and commitment. Well, the best part out of all of this is my professional network is incredibly rich now in Pakistan. I know a lot more amazing ELT researchers out there. I did have a network outside Pakistan, but I'm amazed to know these incredible people now who still want to do more research and publish it. There are more opportunities now. So those are the takeaways. Well, having said that, I know you will still have some questions. Please keep posting them. My co-host will take those questions and we will look at them towards the end. But what I want us to now move into is this amazing segment. You see this beautiful lady. She unfortunately cannot be with us today, but this morning she sent a wonderful text message. Professor Sabiha Mansoor is well known to so many of us in Pakistan and internationally as well. And all of my wonderful speakers here today, they know her professionally and socially as well. She has worked for many renowned institutions throughout her life. I first got to know her in the Kinnaird College for Women where I was a student, and she was my professor. That was our first interaction. Much after that, she moved to the Aga Khan University. Several years later, she started working for the Lahore College for Women University as their vice chancellor. And today she is at the Lahore School of Economics, working in the English language department. So quite an accomplished and inspiring academic. And she has written the foreword for our book. And she has some amazing stuff to say, though I really wish she was here. So I'm going to play this voice note and let us all hear what she has to say for us tonight.
Nazia, I don't think the sound is working.
I'm sorry, Saima. Are you saying the audio clip is not, you can't hear it? Okay.
No.
Let me get out of the PowerPoint and I'm just going to play it otherwise. Just let me know if it's just a 5-minute clip, so.
Nazia, it's still not playing.
Can you hear it now? Oh, okay.
No, Nazia, it's not working.
Well, maybe we can play this later. So it must have something to do with screen sharing. So we'll try it at the
Yes.
end.
So, Dr. Naziha, when you share your screen, there'll be an option called a share sound. When you click
Okay.
it and then share the screen, it'll work.
Okay, so share sound. When I share my screen, you are right. There is an option for share sound. Thank you. And I know you're the expert on teacher development webinars, so thank you for saying that. Thanks for helping with that. Let's try it one more time. Otherwise, we'll just play it at the end.
I'm pleased to talk about English language teaching in Pakistan, a book which compiles articles from leading linguists, particularly applied linguists and researchers, as well as practitioners. And this book is edited by Nazia Ali and Christine Coombe. Let me first of all say up front that I've known them for a long time. Christine I met at Dubai International Conference at least a decade ago, and since then we have been in touch, and she has invited me over to Dubai, and I've come and I've invited her over for a conference in Aga Khan University. So and Nazia, of course, is a very bright upcoming ELT practitioner, and I see her future to be very bright, and especially with the mentorship of Christine Coombe in Dubai. So let me just put in place how important this book is and how welcome it is to us as elders and as researchers. And let me say
It has stopped now, Nazia, again. Nazia, it's not working
it should be
again.
second language, or it should be taught as a compulsory subject or as a medium of instruction. All these are debates around which our literature revolves. And therefore the major bracket is theory, research, and pedagogy. Now, theory means that you need theoretical principles underlying your teaching and research. So theory is important because theory is something that you don't want to overlap with your own work. You want to integrate it into your work so that you can go and do further research on it or practice it and see how valid it is, how does it work in your environment, etc. So the debate of English, whether it should remain a medium of instruction or a second language, I think is very pertinent in our context in Pakistan and in neighboring countries. Because English is an international language. Currently it is. Whether 50 years from now Urdu or Hindi will outnumber them is something we have to see. And additionally, the Chinese are much more in population and there are more population speakers. But China still has to make itself established as a global language. It is expanding its exports, it's expanding its partnership with various countries, and they are advancing towards becoming if the environment is conducive to an international language. So those are things that we still are not sure about, but we can see it coming. Now, the point is that if you're talking about socio-economic development, especially in Pakistani context, I think it's important to know that interconnectivity, because of Wi-Fi and internet, we know that these are the major modes of communication these days, and outreach is very large, and the status and role of English in the efficient education sector is widely recognized as necessary. So research also by myself, by Dr. Tariq Rahman, by Zakia Sarwar, by Abbas, and other researchers in Pakistan have underscored that we require English. Now, whether it's going to be English as a medium or English as a subject. Now, and what level should we start from? So all these things are discussed in the book, and they're very useful. The other thing is that for our development, any country which is developing, it is important that we do what is called knowledge exchange. Knowledge exchange means that we have some prior knowledge, we have research done on it, we have the existing literature, and by sharing it, it helps us to learn what are the positive and beneficial effects of a certain strategy or skill, and what could be the shortcomings. So I think that this is an important area where we have to look at the global language, and the global language, currently international language is English. There are of course French-speaking countries, and there are Urdu and Hindi-speaking countries, and many other more, this multilingual, multicultural. But the need for English, whether it's as a capacity subject or video instruction, is very much there. So I would strongly recommend this book, which is a compilation of a holistic view of English language teaching. And the various chapters in the book provide a critical analysis of major areas in teacher education, whether it's professional development, continuous professional development, or language planning and curriculum reform. There's a wide range of titles of this or essays or chapters included in this book. I strongly recommend this handbook to all stakeholders, language policy planners, heads of education institutions, English language teachers, research scholars, and curriculum directors. Sure, I call it.
So that was Professor Sabiha Mansoor, and I can still see one more comment saying that there's no sound. So if there was no sound, I do apologize for that. It seems like it was audible though. Okay, so sorry about the glitch in between. I will share that recording with the audience later so that you don't, if you've missed out on that. Having said that, I've learned one more thing as part of my technical professional development: never touch anything on the screen when you're playing the sound clip. So thank you, Amanullah, for hopping in and helping. I do appreciate that. Right, so now, that was a very kind and generous endorsement from Professor Sabiha Mansoor. My next guest is someone who believes she has retired or semi-retired, but actually that is not the case. I'd like to say it is the never retiring Professor Liz England. At the moment, Professor Liz England lives in Winchester, Virginia, United States. She's had a lifelong career based in the United States, and that includes many long and short-term assignments worldwide. Dr. England or Professor England has contributed to and completed language teacher education projects for both English and Arabic teachers with ministries of education, international universities, and K-12 schools, and the TESOL International Association, as well as the United States government. Now in Pakistan, she has led keynote and plenary addresses. She's held meetings, she's delivered presentations, and conducted workshops on 3 English language specialist programs. The RELO, the United States Embassy, Islamabad. So those English language specialist programs. These visits to Pakistan and work here have helped formulate her abiding connection with English teachers, administrators, programs, and friends like us. So she's done that twice in Islamabad and Lahore, and once each in Karachi, Bahawalpur, and Peshawar. So she's well familiar with our educational landscape in ELT. Professor England is a recipient of institutional, national, and international awards for teaching and learning and research. And she is particularly honored to be a past TESOL Board of Directors. She was elected in 2003 and her term lasted until 2006. And like Dr. Coombe, she is also a 30 United States State Department Award winner, which is in recognition for her service and impact on English language teaching worldwide. Now, currently, Professor England is working on a new co-edited book called English Language Teacher Education in Challenging Times, a publication that I'm looking forward to reading soon. She's leading a large, diverse, and vibrant TESOL community on this amazing platform called Career Path Development. And you should at some time tune into those webinars as well. They happen quite regularly, and they're always posted on Facebook. She is also a founder of this community called Career Path Development Professional Learning Network. And she loves practicing yoga and meditation and spending time with her grandson. So when she says she is retired or semi-retired, I refuse to believe that. Now, I do have a question for Professor Liz England. Welcome to you, first of all, and thank you for joining our session and making time to support this publication and our research work in Pakistan. Now, first of all, I'd like you to share with us, what is it that most strikes you about this work? Professor Liz.
Thank you so much, Naziha. So happy to be here with you and Christine. Beautiful introduction. Really, you should go into the introduction business, Naziha. My God, you didn't miss anything. I can't believe how good I feel about myself and about being here and about the book and everything. I'm very excited. Greetings to Dr. Christine and Naziha. Professor Zahia, I want to say hello to you. I don't talk to you often enough. My affection for Pakistan that Naziha has described and that is in my note at the beginning of this book. This is the book, it's sitting right here on my desk as we talk because I wanted to refer to it. This affection I have is based on 2 things. One is Naziha's comments about my career path development passion. I'm interested in career path development and how, in this case, how teaching and research in Pakistan has informed the extraordinary work that we find in this book. So we find people writing, the authors and co-authors of these chapters represent the whole gamut of TESOL career path. And for that, I see this book to be particularly strong. I see everything nowadays through this career path development lens. The other lens that I want to raise up in my remarks, and I don't want to talk forever, though I would be happy to do that. You know how we are, we get going. The other thing I want to mention is the lens of the United States Regional English Language Office. Naziha correctly and accurately described my 3 trips to Pakistan. Some I've done virtually, so those are additional. I don't know how many those are, but there are more virtual trips than physical ones. 3 physical trips hosted by Regional English Language Office. Richard Boyum may be in our audience. He was going to try to come today and I haven't had a chance to see. But Richard, thank you so much for the invitation, for introducing me in 2006 to Peshawar, to Lahore, and to Islamabad on my first trip. That one was so extraordinary and touching and important in my career path development that I ended up coming back 2 more times. Once with Regional English Language Officer Richard Boyum, and the third one with Maria Snarsky, who has come and gone from the US Embassy, Islamabad. Thank you to the Department of State for providing me with these opportunities to grow and learn. At TESOL 2022, just a few weeks ago, I was present physically, as many of us were able to go who were local. It was more difficult for Pakistanis to get there, though. As I walked down the hallway in the Pittsburgh Convention Center, a man, a strange, very attractive, tall man, came up to me and said, "Dr. England, we met in Peshawar in 2006. And he wept in the hallway in Pittsburgh as we realized we'd met in a workshop I'd done there and how incredibly important it was. We talked for an hour, we sat down and talked, we took pictures together. The power of the connection between Pakistan and American specialists is really quite profound. Jody Crandall's also in the audience, another awardee from the 30 at 30 with Christine and me, Lucky. We all have really connected somehow with the Pakistani context. The other thing, and very quickly I want to say, is that Dr. Sabiha and I also met in Lahore in 2006. And I did a program at the management, I'm sorry, I don't remember the whole name, but the management university there in Lahore. I really love being able to go back to Lahore 3 times and hope to come again. The work in this book, oh, I'm going to let you talk, Naziha. I think I tried to answer your question. Sorry.
Well, you did, you definitely did. And in the meantime, I realized that your friends Jody and Richard are actually here. So that's amazing. Thank you, Liz. I do appreciate all of the contributions you've made to this part of the world. And thank you for talking about those. I think what our viewers or audience members would also like to know from you is what sort of collaborative research across borders could possibly arise out of the kind of research that's been published in this work and has been shared with an international audience. I think we'd like some insight on that from you.
Thank you. And you had asked about what struck me about the book, which is related to the connectivity bit. The breadth of the content of this book, I think there are 7 sections that you listed earlier, and I won't list those, but they kind of run a gamut of a variety of topics for which there might be one book for each of those 7 in the future. But the breadth of that content is really quite remarkable and notable in this conversation. And then the second is the potential for excellence. The history of education in general in Pakistan is so powerful and so important, and the lengths to which parents go with children all the way through high school and university and postgraduate to go to the UK or go to the US or stay in Pakistan and get PhD. The fact is that education is already established. We don't talk about politics much, but it is impossible for me to not mention the fact that Pakistan education operates in an ever-changing landscape of political issues and pressures and benefits. But at the end of the day, so many people care so much about education. So for that reason, we have this really extraordinary potential for excellence. And we have excellence, but I think in terms of your question about collaborative research and going forward, Pakistani with Pakistani, I see collaborations across the country, geographical regions, different age groups. We could talk about various combinations of Pakistanis working together because of your strength. Dr. Amr Mahboob, who is a Pakistani-born, internationally known rock star, passionate about many things, and I published an article together in a book on language teaching associations. Spelt is an example of one where the history is so important for us to know about. And that brings me to my recent experience with TESOL International in Uzbekistan, a country that borders Pakistan, and a very logical combination of work. So Spelt doesn't have the same situation as Uzbekistan. Spelt, I mixed up. Pakistan has Spelt, a teaching association. Uzbekistan has no real established affiliate of TESOL. They're working on one, but that collaboration might be so helpful. The history, the struggles, the challenges, and the advantages and the benefits and the happy ending stories and all of the work that has been done by Spelt over the last decades, that is interesting to a new fledgling Uzbekistan TESOL affiliate. But I don't think that connection has been made. I invited Uzbekistan based colleagues to come to this session, and they may be here. But I would invite Pakistan to take the lead on this, because you are the grand dames. You know the landscape of language teaching associations in ways that the Uzbeks don't. So I would invite you to consider working together with your geographical border colleagues who, with whom you have a lot in common. There's a lot of exchange over that border on economic or political, a variety of other issues. And then finally, US-Pakistan is a combination that is established already. And I am the product of what have been, on my side, very positive collaborations, both working in Pakistan, but also when I come home. I hosted a Pakistani Humphrey Fellow in my home because she didn't have any place to, anyway, she came and she was in another field, but I got to know her. And these opportunities that come to us as Americans, both for our physical travel, our virtual efforts, such as the one we're engaged right now today, and then finally having Pakistani colleagues and friends and students come to us here in the US and help us to strengthen and build our academic programs and universities in companies too. You talked about your corporate background, Naziha. I'm so grateful for that in our conversations and in our friendship, which started in Dubai, I think at, again, Christine, the great connector at TESOL Arabia many years ago. Those would be my suggestions. Pakistan, Uzbekistan, US, Pakistan. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. I think you've mentioned some very, very critical points here. The first being cross-border collaborations. And I'm sure that those of us who are here, we've already formed a community. We will be taking up on those ideas in the near future, because collaborations are amazing. And all of us here today together is an example of that. And the second very significant thing that you highlighted is that each of the sections of this publication could be another publication in itself, which is something that will definitely remain in my head until I've done it now. So thank you so much. That was so valuable. And I really appreciate having you here today. I know it's pretty early in the day for you. So I believe there'll be a little bit more conversations on associations later in the session when I ask Dr. Coombe to take over again. So I will need your input on that, as well as will those of us who are listening to you here today. Now, it is time for us to move to one more celebrity person here. someone who is a Pakistani sitting in Boston at the moment. And that is Professor Zakia Sarwar, who is, of course, no stranger to any of us who have anything to do with Pakistan or Pakistani English language teaching. Now, Professor Zakia Sarwar has over 4 decades of experience in teaching English language and literature at the graduate level. MashaAllah, and I'm quite humbled to know all of this about her. She is also a teacher educator, although she doesn't need an introduction. For the purpose of this session, I'm definitely going to provide some insight into who she is and what she does. She is the founder member. She is actually the founder of the Society of Pakistan English Language Teachers, spelled the teaching association in Pakistan. Well, she says that she established it with the help of her devoted spelters, but she has always been the driving force and is well known around the world about her role in spelled. And at the moment, she is also very fondly known as Mother Spelt in Pakistan. It's an endearing term that we culturally use for someone who we respect a great deal. That's a cultural term. So that is what she is known as, because she has helped the development of numerous teachers, thousands and thousands, and she was very, very actively involved until, like Professor Liz, she semi-retired into Boston. So, well, one never truly does retire from things like these. Her fields of expertise are learner autonomy, developing indigenous materials to suit local context. She has also worked on a model of project-based learning, on which she spent approximately 3 decades. And quite interestingly, that has also been replicated in Nepal. Now, Professor Sarwar has several national and international publications to her credit. She has presented practically everywhere in the world, starting with the Southeast Asian countries to the West. We always see her at TESOL International or ITEFL until, of course, COVID struck. So I could just go on and on about her. She is a pioneer in the field of ELT research in education in Pakistan. Now, welcome to our session, Professor Zakia Sarwar. We fondly also call her Zakia Appa, which is an endearing term for someone who is senior, and it's a cultural term again. Now, thank you for joining us today. So one of my first questions to you would be, what stands out for you in this publication? Because you termed it as a valuable resource to the ELT community. So what stands out for you? And secondly, what advice do you have for upcoming scholars like us, some of who are published in this book? So please share that with us. What stands out for you, and what advice do you have for the rest of us?
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you and Christine for having published this very, very knowledgeable book. And I feel very proud about it because, you know, my dream has been to know that Pakistan can teach English well to its students who deserve better than what they have at this point. You know, I believe that they want to learn, but unfortunately, the way things are, the way the curriculum is, the way everything else is, you know, the policies that are made, the way things are done, it's not satisfactory. And so right from the beginning, when we talked about establishing SPELT, my aim was to think of data-based, research-based ways of showing that the kind of teaching that can be done in Pakistan, which will be effective for learners, is possible. And so that's how SPELT was born. And the first 3 years, we had very research-based themes for the conference, something like the first one was evaluation of compulsory English courses from class 1 to the BA level. And we had Alan Cunningsworth's checklist, and we put it across to see how teachers were responding to it. Unfortunately, the Pakistani bureaucracy is very thick-skinned, and despite of knowing the kinds of problems that there were, the courses at the school level have still not changed so much. The courses up to the intermediate level have not changed too much. They are still like, you know, we are teaching Bertrand Russell and other people, and we have literature-based things going. Prisoner of Zenda has not been released, although they have he has served many terms so far. So all of this was because research has not been taken into consideration by the Pakistani authorities. But I would say that I'm most thrilled to have this collection which says English language teaching in Pakistan. So for the first time, although there have been articles that have been appearing, this is the first time that an international publication of its nature has got research-based article. And if the authorities that be decide to think of doing something for Pakistan, they would look at this. In any case, there are researchers, there are impassioned, inspired practitioners who are, in spite of all of this, continuing to find ways to innovate, to work, see what will work in the classroom. So the fact that this book has dealt with all the pertinent issues is in one place. You have a collection through which you can have a look at what to do in case you want to do something in Pakistan. You know, and so there is a resource for policymakers, there's a resource for curriculum developments, and there is resource, you know, I mean, we've been on roller coaster as far as the Pakistan policy is of education policy, especially English language teaching is concerned. We've been on a roller coaster, up and down and everything. And Howell Coleman did a very, very strong study on this. So the data is there. The recommendations are there. Now it is for the practitioners, I'm sure, would look at it and take up things like what, you know, has been like the innovations, which is like improving ELT through process anagram or the use of technology. So the desperate teachers who are wanting to do something can at least make some difference in their classrooms through this way of behavior.
Thank you
And
so
so
much.
this
Yeah.
book is a very, very, very strong resource in case there is a willingness to change the educational scenario in Pakistan, which I find is very, very dismal at this point, I'm afraid.
So I think that's very encouraging for us to hear from someone like you about which direction this could possibly go in. And I appreciate that. What we do understand as Pakistanis or as citizens of the world, I suppose, is that political upheavals always affect education first. But I think what I'm picking up from what you've said, as I hope the rest of our audience members are as well, is the fact that one has to persist in terms of research and producing this kind of knowledge that can eventually, hopefully, have an impact on policies and the direction in which our education is driven. So,
Yeah, you see, Nazia, this is how my own classroom action research started, and this is how SPELT started. Because when I came back from Australia, I could not go back to the class and say, open your book on page so and so. And, I thought that nothing has changed. Yes, things in Pakistan hadn't changed, but I had changed. So that's when we talked about teacher education, we talked about a teacher network, so that you could have people together, like you have gathered them together to write the articles for this book. And I commend all these young researchers who have, I know what kind of hurdles there are in doing any kind of research in Pakistan. So I would say that anybody who has succeeded in doing something about it needs to be praised. And I would like to congratulate the authors. And I know that writing a research article is a very, very tedious, very, very soul-searching kind of job. And like, you start saying, why did I accept to do that? And you feel like throwing it away, but you have to take it back. So I hope that all these researchers will continue their research and that they will continue to write, because that's the surest way that at least they can take care of their own professional development. Because writing is thinking, writing is clarifying your ideas. And so if nothing else happens, at least those who are writing are doing some kind of professional development for themselves.
absolutely right. And I believe everybody will agree with me that what you've said, what Professor Liz England has said, Dr. Christine Coombe, and Professor Sabiha Mansour is incredibly invaluable to the rest of us, because we are at different stages in our research.
Yeah.
While we are on...
The recommendation that I would like to give is that we should continue ethnographic research with rigorous critical analysis and write, publish, and network internationally. That is something that is at least ensuring one's own professional development. Also, I think in the research issues arising out of mismatch and lack of coordination between the primary, secondary, higher secondary, and tertiary levels, I think that's something that has not been addressed. That needs to be, if HEC is giving out all kinds of research facilities and everything, but the primary and secondary level are totally ignored, then HEC is a giant with clay feet, So I think that part where a lack of coordination between these areas are concerned, I think research needs to be done in that also.
So you've just given me another idea, Professor Zakia. I have to invite you back for a longer session on research, and I am taking your commitment on air in the presence of 47 audience members. I will have to invite you back in a couple of weeks, and we need you to commit right now and say, yes, I will, because we need to learn from you. Can we have that from you?
Anything to do improve teaching and learning of English in Pakistan is my aim. Yeah.
So 47 people have.
There is one more point that I wanted to say,
Please do.
Nazia, because that concerns me, is there should be research on how to maximize teaching learning with limited resources that we have. Because, the first time that I was in UGC, I remember Anjum Riazul Haq was at Nahe, and she said, If you think large classes are going away, they are not. So you have to decide to work within that framework. And I think that's how Dr. Fawzia Shamim got she's the first PhD in large classes.
That's
So, you know, I think we need to understand our context, our problems, and work for them
absolutely
and the research on them.
right. So I very much appreciate that input. It was much needed for all of us, the authors and co-authors in this publication. And as promised on air, I will have to invite you back for a fuller session. Right now, while we are on the subject of research, I have to shift gears towards Dr. Christine Coombe for a very important question that has come to my mind. And I'd really like your input for all of us on how can we train our researchers to engage in more refined research and its documentation for publication. And I put that to you because from my experience with you, I know that you, mashallah, can I use that word again for an international audience? It's the word of praise amongst those who speak Arabic. So you've got 50 plus publications and more are on the way. So you're the best person to ask, how can we train our researchers to engage in more refined research and then its documentation for publication?
Probably the first thing I'd like to say is don't attempt to publish on a variety of different things. Find your specialty, the thing that you know the most about and you feel capable of sharing something, and focus on that first. When I was lucky that when I graduated, my specialty was and still is assessment. But when I became more knowledgeable and I developed other what I consider to be specialties, I gradually implemented them. I serve as editor-in-chief of Language Teaching Research Quarterly and the editor of the brief report section of Asia TEFL Journal. Both of those journals are Scopus indexed, and Asia TEFL Journal is Q1 ranked. One of the things I see, and literally I spend more time on these two projects than I do practically on my job I get paid for. All for nothing, all volunteer. But one of the things I see when I get submissions, and don't get me wrong, I really admire the non-native English speaking teachers writing for publication in a Q1 journal. As a French speaker, I would never in a million years even attempt to write an article for a journal in French. But however, one of the things I notice is that, I'm not going to name the country, there are a couple of countries where the scholars in those countries, they put each other's names on various publications and rotate themselves around. So you have like 3 submissions, all from the same team of people, all on widely different, it's almost like a scattergun approach. They need a publication to graduate, to get their master's or doctorate. So they put each other's names and usually the name of their advisor as well on every paper they submit. And it gives the wrong idea to the editor, basically. So another thing is, if you have a doctorate, and you should know what citation and referencing is. If you don't, it's not your fault, it's your doctoral advisor's fault, okay? Because another thing that I see is people putting in articles or journal articles and with 16 references missing. I have no idea why they would think that they could have 16 references missing. So I often write them back and I said, it's too bad that one of the 5 authors forgot to check the, the referencing, because it's the last thing an editor sees. And for me, if I see sloppy referencing and big problems with referencing and citation, I lose confidence in the research. And I think lots of people who are novice in getting their work published, they need to know that it's really, really important, especially for a Scopus Index journal, because the citation and referencing is part of getting the Scopus index, like ranking. So I think that's important. So don't neglect the small stuff. I now, as an editor, what I do is when I get a submission, and I tell people, the first thing I'm going to do is inventory your in-text citations and your referencing. If there are more than 3 references missing, it's an automatic desk rejection, because I feel that novice researchers wanting to go to publication need that lesson. They need to know that this is important. Now, I think if we back up a little bit, we also need to ask ourselves, why do we want to publish? And some of the reasons why people want to publish are, well, they want to get promoted. They want to move up an academic rank. And if that is the reason that people want to get published, the first thing they need to do is they need to read very carefully the promotion guidelines for their institution. One of the things I'm doing right now is I'm serving on my institution's promotion committee. So we're the last committee that recommends people for promotion. And I've been around here a long time, and I have learned so many different things. Institutions typically have a certain number of publications that a person needs to move up a rank. Let's say you need 1 journal article in a Q1 or a highly ranked Scopus Index journal as a first author, and you need 2 other indexed conference proceedings or something. So you need to know that before you even apply, how many publications do you need to be first author on? What type of publications? By being on my own promotion committee, I know now which publishers are not accepted for books. I'm not going to name them, but there are 2 or 3 publishers that my colleagues are using to publish edited collections that do not count towards promotion. That's something you need to know before you become involved, okay? So what else do I have in my notes? I think one of the best things to do before you get published is to read. The reason why I don't resign these editing positions is because it forces me to read in a wide variety of areas, which I consider as professional development. And the more you read other people's work, the better you get at knowing, for example, how a research article needs to be written up, because there's a specific framework that you can use. I think starting small as well is a good thing to do. One of the things I first did when I started publishing way a long time ago was somebody recommended that I could review books. So you write to publishers, they have books that they want reviewed, and they send you a free book. You use some of the activities, you read it, and you write like a 750-word review. And that gets you reading. It gets you looking at other materials or other textbooks that other people have done as well. I think that's important. I think you also need to be prepared to make a commitment. Naziha, and I'm sure Liz, you can relate to the fact that when people send you a chapter, they automatically assume the book will come out 2 months from now, okay? And I laugh because that's not the way it works. In fact, the fastest I have 57 books. Pakistan was 56 and the UAE was 57. Amongst those books, the fastest I've had a book out is 2.5 years, okay? Our book took almost 4 because of the reasons that you gave previously, but there are lots of unforeseen deadlines. Now, if you're writing the whole book, basically it depends on you, but an edited volume is much more difficult because the last edited book I had 32 chapters. So probably maybe almost 60 authors. So you need all kinds of things from everybody, basically. You need bios, you need postal addresses, you need lots of consent forms, permission forms. All this stuff takes a lot of time. And that's not to mention the real hard part, and that's going over sometimes 3 times providing feedback to articles. I think we had 3 reviews of articles, plus 2 external reviews for the Pakistan book, and some chapters needed even more work. So I think it's really important that you be prepared. A good book, an edited book, is 3 years from the time you send it into the publisher for the very first time to the time that it comes out on the shelf. And you know, as we said, how many years is it going to take for you, Naziha, to receive your complimentary copies as the editor? So I'm still waiting for the UAE book. Although some other people have received their copies, they haven't arrived in my mailbox yet as well. Other things I want to suggest as well is collaboration. I'm a big fan of collaboration. In fact, of my 57 books, only 2 of those books, it has my name alone on the front of those books, although within there's collaboration. But you also have to be very picky with who you choose to collaborate with. Luckily, 3 of you on this Zoom session today, yourself, Naziha, Liz, as well as Rubina, we've done books together. All 3 of you ladies have been excellent to work with. But as good as you were, I've had so many nightmare experiences. I'm not going to name and shame, but it can be as good as it can get, but it can also be as bad as it can get, where you are kind of stuck with the entire project. But then again, they get their name on the book, the front page of the book, and they get the same money that you would get. And another myth out there is that you're going to get rich by publishing a book. If only that were true. You're not going to get rich unless you're, you know, doing a textbook that sells a gazillion copies. Teacher books, you get, I can't even remember how much you get an editorial honorarium of like $300, okay? Basically. And you know, you only get 2 free copies these days. It used to be 10 free copies, but now publishers are getting a little bit more bakhil with different things. So don't prepare to get rich, although when you publish a book, that will appear a lot on Google under your name. So you could, you know, leverage that for some consulting money as well. But publishing is not really a lucrative side hustle for you. So please don't think it is. But collaboration, I think, is really important. And I think this is where professional associations like SPELT, like TESOL Arabia. In fact, Rubina Khan is on this Zoom session, and TESOL Arabia Testing SIG, along with the BELTA, the Bangladeshi English Language Teacher Association, we as 2 associations collaborated on an edited volume with, it was called Best Practices in not only the Gulf, TESOL Arabia context, but also in Bangladesh. That's something I believe Liz mentioned that, you know, 2 associations linking up to, you know, compare research or whatever topic you would choose. So I think professional associations can play a big role in helping set up a professional network. And I know the idea Naziha and I have discussed with the start of these webinars would be, hopefully at the end, we could have a network already set up to mentor teachers, not only in conducting research, but ultimately presenting it in a research showcase, and then finally finding a publication venue for their research. So that's all I have. There's so many things that I could say, but you know, only 10 minutes. I welcome suggestions from anyone else here as well.
I want to add to Christine. Thanks, Christine. And my comment is brief. In these days, digital publishing is a thing. You mentioned webinars, Christine. Our CPD does webinars. We're talking about putting that into a book. Books are kind of yesterday's news. I had a former student tell me the other day, why are you publishing books? Nobody reads books. You have to have, you know, audio or blogs or something quick and glitzy and with photograph. In a way, it's something to think about. is publishing books is what universities want in terms of tenure and promotion. And that's not to be underestimated, the importance, but there are other purposes for publishing besides tenure and promotion. And many people now are doing OER, this open educational resource publishing that doesn't have any money. Amira Salama in Africa, English Language Teaching Association, is training African teachers to create this repository of materials. Really exciting. It's a little off your topic. I apologize, Christine, but I want to get in the whole fact that we are dealing now beyond books in terms of publishing, and we ought to be thinking about ways of doing that better. Thanks.
Yeah.
So,
Sadaf,
sorry, go
you had
on.
I think Sadaf has her hand raised. Unmute yourself and come on, Sadaf. Or not. Okay,
Sadaf.
handing back to you, Naziha.
Thank you so much. You know, every time we talk or do a session, so many brilliant ideas come out. And from the comments I'm reading in the comment box, it seems we will have to do a session on publications, and we will include that as a part of the series, as you've just suggested, because people have a lot of questions and there's a lot of learning to do about this. And I feel that after one publication, I have learned so much. One book publication, I've learned so much. And I think everybody else deserves to learn that as well. And some of the points you mentioned are very well appreciated, as I can see in the comments box. So we will have to do, aside from Professor Zakia's input, I think I'll have to bring you and Professor Liz back for more insights on publications. So thank you so much for that. We take questions at the end, and that's going to be in a moment because we're almost done. At this stage, I want to shift the focus to two very important individuals who were part of the initial startup that Dr. Christine Coombe and I, our initial efforts in Pakistan. So I think these two individuals deserve a lot of recognition, which is why I've invited them here today, and they've sat patiently through our 1.5-hour chat of English language teacher research. So I'm going to introduce the first person, Dr. Dina Khan. Let me just tell you a little bit about her, because not everybody here may know her. She has a PhD in social anthropology, and wait till you hear a little bit more. She has studied at the University of Kent at Canterbury in the United Kingdom. And she's also a certified TEFL teacher, something that I discovered recently, which means we'll have to bring her back for some more input into the field. She has worked with several NGOs, both in Pakistan and outside Pakistan. Her main areas of research and interest include cross-cultural identity, gender education, and health. Dr. Khan has worked as a consultant anthropologist in several countries, and she has attended multiple international conferences like a true professional in her field. She has completed consultancy for projects for UNFPA, IDOS, that's an Italian Association for Women in Development. She's done a lot of work for the development of women, and also at the University of Kent. She was also an active member of TESOL Arabia when TESOL Arabia engaged in all of their PD activities. Now, with her interest in female empowerment, Dr. Khan recognized the need to provide women with economic and educational opportunities. So she was also a team member of an art and culture educational program for women and children at the Dubai Ladies Club in the United Arab Emirates. So she's spent a significant time in the UAE as well. She has also supported a quality assurance program for the hospitality industry training in Bahrain. So quite a versatile personality here, aside from the support she has given to the teacher development initiatives, which she will tell you about in a moment. Now, when she decided to focus on Pakistan, she started working on a series of school improvement and quality assurance programs in the underdeveloped areas. That's how our connection began. And starting in 2013, with the support of international trainers, that includes Dr. Coombe and myself and some of our other colleagues, this is where she supported the series of teacher training workshops that were held around the country. And the initial push definitely came from her, which is why she is a valuable person to this project. And she has been instrumental in helping women improve their professional skills and economic standing eventually. Now, please welcome Dr. Dina Khan. And I'm actually going to ask her to elaborate a little bit, Dr. Dina, on how you came to associate with me and Dr. Coombe, and a little bit about your initial efforts towards teacher development in Pakistan. Oh, sorry, we have to unmute you. We cannot hear you. You're still.
There we go.
Okay.
Better?
So
thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Really, I think you pretty much covered everything that I thought that I would I would have to say about myself. As you said, I come from a little different background to the rest of you. I don't have the same specialization in English, in teaching and languages as you all have. But I do have, with my background in anthropology, I did do a lot of development work. And part of that was, of course, always focused on education and on women's development, not only health, but also in education. So how did I get started on this path? Well, I was living in Dubai at the time. I was working in a different education field, promoting education. And Hafiz and I happened to be working together. You'll be speaking to Hafiz after this. And Hafiz and I did a project, as you mentioned, with the Dubai Ladies Club. And while we were working with that, we were also talking about generally how we could move forward with education and women's empowerment. And since both of us had the Pakistani connection, Hafiz is Pakistani, I'm half Pakistani, we felt that we would really like to focus our efforts there. And then through TESOL, of course, I was introduced to you and Dr. Christine Coombe. And it seemed like a very fortuitous connection to be able to use those skills and those connections that we have and be able to put together a program that would really be of the most benefit to students and teachers, really. Because if we're educating teachers, all students are going to benefit. You know, if the teachers don't get the resources and the training that they need, how are they going to be able to empower their students to move further and to reach the progress that they really are aiming for? And I'd like to mention, actually, it was also, it's interesting that I took this road because one of my father's interests, and my father passed away last year with COVID, and one of my father's interests was very much women's education in particular. So in a way, I feel, although it wasn't planned at the time, I followed his interests and his direction. And I think it was because those things were discussed over the years and because that's what was important to both of us, and it was a shared interest. So having arranged the initial series of workshops with you and Dr. Coombe, and you came out to Pakistan, we started working with that, it became very clear that was just the tip of the iceberg. That's so much, there's still so much scope for offering that kind of training. And not only training, but research. As Professor Zakia just mentioned, you know, research is so important. And of course, as an anthropologist, I'm well aware of that. It's the research that is going to help determine what the best way is to promote that information, to carry that training forward. And this book is step one of that. It's like a springboard of starting something that we hope will be snowballing into larger and larger efforts and more connections, and not only within the country, as all of you have discussed, but internationally, where we can benefit from each other's information, we can help each other, we can bounce ideas off each other, and we can use that to help all of us move forward. So that's why I'm involved, and really it's a great day to see this publication, and I'm really proud and happy to be involved with it. And before I go, I also wanted to especially thank Mr. Ali Raza Jafri for all of his help with this. And I know he's your father, but I want to mention him anyways, because initially it was his assistance, his providing of the resources and everything that really got us off the ground. And we wouldn't have been able to manage that without him. So thank you to him. Thank you to all of you. Congratulations on the book. And I look forward to seeing much more of it in the future. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dina Khan. And while we are talking fathers, I think I will take the liberty to mention that for those of you who do not know, Dr. Dina Khan is the daughter of our renowned nuclear scientist in Pakistan, Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan. I hope you don't mind me saying that on live on screen. I think it's fair that everybody, we have an international audience today, so it's important for everybody to know who you are, where you come from, and how you came to be associated with the empowerment of women through your dad. And very sorry about your father's passing away, sadly, last year.
Thank you.
We do pray for him to be at peace.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I'm sure he would be as happy as I am to see this book being developed, and also all the work that is being done in the field of education, because it really was one of his babies, one of the things he cared the most and was passionate about. And as a nationalist, that is what he wanted. He wanted students to get the best opportunities to help this country be the best that it can be. So I'm sure this is part of that.
That's right. And we
thank you again.
Thank you very much for being here. We fully value that. And I'm reiterating that we appreciate that the initial push came from you when you actually organized sessions in Islamabad and made it possible for Dr. Christine and me to come there and get started. So thank you. I know your dad would be very proud of you today, as I'm sure he always was. So
thank you. And thank you for all the nice comments that I'm seeing flashing up on the screen. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to see people appreciate my father as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Keep those happy comments coming in. I'm loving it. So with that, there's one more person that I'd love to acknowledge here. And as Dr. Dina mentioned, he's been a critical part of the initial drive for teacher training in Pakistan with Dr. Dina. And over the years, those efforts led to Dr. Coombe and I actually conceptualizing this publication. So let me introduce to you Hafiz Rahman. He is an experienced education and business consultant who spent about 25 years in the UAE, I believe, or 30 probably, and is now based in Pakistan. And he spent approximately 25 years of his career working with both educational institutions and high-profile business clients in the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom, and now in Pakistan. Like Dr. Dina said, he was once a key part of TESOL Arabia when TESOL Arabia was functioning. And with us, he was he played a key role in the initial teacher development outreach project that Dr. Coombe and I started in 2007. And then in intermittent bits, it led up to the big event that Dr. Dina pushed us forward with in 2013. So in the UAE, he has received awards for his support to TESOL Arabia, teacher development, and educational consultancy. And right now, he is working on some key projects in Pakistan. My purpose in inviting him here along with Dr. Dina was to actually acknowledge his support and contribution initially. So I'm going to invite him to say a few words before we start taking the questions and answers. Hafiz, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Nazia, and hello to everybody whom I've known for so many years. My journey basically in United Arab Emirates as an education consultant. I've worked there for many years. Living in United Arab Emirates, the important thing that was learned from the great leaders of the United Arab Emirates, their emphasis was the development and training for success of the country. So basically, that's how I joined TESOL Arabia. I have worked as an executive committee member, doing different roles for 17 years. And after spending 17 years of the experience, and of course, that's how when I came on board with TESOL Arabia, there were many faculties, teachers who were just teaching language, and like Dr. Nazia, whom we met at one of the school, who was the teacher and everything, and we discussed to be part of the executive committee and to basically work away. So professional development is a platform where many things that they might get money, or they might are here for some other gain. As Dr. Christine Coombe says, you know, all this thing, experience, knowledge, skill is something to help others. That is what the satisfaction we get doing the community work is a smile, a success of others. And this is our satisfaction. This is our biggest wealth. And that's how on this journey of the professional development platform, I met many people, and there was a conference where I met Professor Zakia and Professor Sabia, who invited us to basically do something in Pakistan. And while my discussion with Dr. Dina Khan, who was very much eager to do something for the development of teachers, and basically a dream of Dr. Nazia to go back to her home country and do something. But of course, in the most difficult time of 2013, when there was Pakistan was on the red list of terrorist attacks and everything like that, Dr. Dina, Dr. Christine Coombe, and Dr. Nazia made their way to have our first event. This motivated us, this encouraged us, and to bring many other international trainers in Pakistan. And that's how the journey started and moved forward. And we would like to also thank ARJ Trust for their huge contributions, the place where thousands of teachers were trained from the less privileged areas. We did wonderful workshops, we did wonderful events, and I've decided to basically now, after the COVID, we were involved in many webinars program, And I've decided that basically now we should once again work in the remote areas, because the teachers lack technology. So to Liz, I would like to address that doing webinars is a wonderful thing, but in those remote areas where there is no technology, where is no internet, or it's poor coverage, those areas the interaction is very important. And I would like to invite all those who are here, and especially those people the emerging in this educational field, or who know they want to contribute. I'm based in Islamabad. I'll share my contact, and please do get in touch with me so that we should carry out this journey. There are organizations like SPELT and many other organizations in Pakistan which are working, but still a lot of area we are unable to move forward. So it's a journey, never-ending journey. We see Professor Zakia, Liz, Dr. Christine Coombe, wonderful people who have dedicated their journey, their life, their entire life, in providing professional development, bringing people like us come forward to a place where it's our duty now to carry this journey forward. And these people have spent their time, their resources, regardless, they have personal life. A lot of people are going through a lot of issues, but still they keep the issues on the side, and they say, let's do something for the others. Let's bring a smile on their face. So this is a never-ending journey, and I hope that those people who are interested, who are in Pakistan, please do join hand with me, and we would like to carry this journey. And I'm very much happy to see the wonderful work Dr. Nazia, Dr. Christine Coombe, and of course Peter, who had discussed the idea at the Sialkot airport. This idea of the book was discussed and everything, and it was shared to me, and I said, aha. So I was like, okay, everybody is so busy. And especially, Dr. Nazia and Dr. Christine Coombe, they are everywhere. So regardless, they brought this thing, and I'm very happy, and I'm very proud. And I would like to thank Dr. Dina also, that the first seed she initiated in 2013 in pushing me to let's set the date and let's get started. So that's how this journey has started. Thank you, Dr. Nazia, for inviting us to this wonderful journey, and we look forward physically. Dr. Christine Coombe, Liz, I hope to see you once again in Pakistan. And of course, we are missing Professor Zakia. Zakia Appa has been a wonderful spirit for all those young English language teachers, a role model, basically, who has till date haven't given up on this journey. So it's
Hafiz. So if you allow me to interrupt, and I'm really sorry for that in the interest of time. I think people would be very much interested in the kind of work that you and Dr. Dina are doing in Islamabad at the moment, because I mentioned that you both were engaged in projects in Pakistan at the moment. So I can see from the comments that there's a lot of interest. So I think what you should ideally do is put your email address there in the chat box, so that those who are in Pakistan and are interested in collaborating with you may want to get in touch with you. So while you're here, please put your email address in that chat box.
Sure. Sure. I'll just end this by saying thank you, everyone. And of course, after the COVID, a lot of people like me from the educational side, the things were done webinar, and I came to Pakistan. And again, I met Dr. Dina by chance, and she encouraged me to basically continue this journey again, once again. And that's how we have started. I'm already in touch with international organizations and also in Pakistan with individuals who people to come forward, and we are working on these things. Of course, this will not be possible without a team like the team we had, the journey which has brought such a wonderful achievement of this first launch of the book. So definitely I'll leave my comments, and thank you again, Dr. Nazia, for being the host.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time that everyone's put in into this session today. Now, while we have just about 10 minutes to go before this session ends, I'm going to ask my patient co-host if there have been any questions. I saw a lot of comments popping up. So, Saima, are there any questions from the audience that are meant for any of our speakers today?
I don't see any particular question directed towards anyone, but I see one comment about somebody is being interested in co-editing some book from Bangladesh.
Okay.
So if anyone can give some advice on it.
So we have some amazing people here. Everybody can give advice. So perhaps, is that directed to somebody, Dr. Coombe, or
if it's Rubina who put that comment in?
Yes.
We've already been talking about the possibility of doing, what did we call it? Are we calling it Southeast Asia or South Asia?
Right.
We've already talked about getting a team of people together and doing a broader geographical publication as part of my series. So I'm going to put, Rubina, you know my email, so send me an email if you're interested, and we'll start the discussion.
That's right. So that's a good one. So I always feel that every time I get together with Dr. Coombe, there's always a productive discussion, and we end up talking about newer projects. And now the same seems to be the case with Professor Liz and Zakiapa. So I think what we will eventually end up doing is forming a professional network for research, like Dr. Coombe has just stated when she spoke about research, and that will be amazing. Now, one of the last updates I would like to leave all our audience members with is that this was a very first session focused on this publication, which has opened up so many other avenues. In the forthcoming months, we will be hosting similar sessions on different sections of this publication so that we can feature all of our authors from this publication who can come and talk about the research they conducted for the chapter, for their respective chapter in this book, and the current research that they are involved in. And our belief is that this might open up further avenues for more research into the context that we are all associated with. And I can see that in the audience, we have some amazing people who I have great respect for as well, including all of my colleagues. I can see all the names. So I do encourage all of you to make time for these sessions and join us when we shoot out the next date. And before we leave, it's just appropriate to share with you a slide on which you can find a link to the publication. I've already mentioned forthcoming sections. The publication is actually available on Springer. And as somebody asked me, it's also listed on Amazon. So you're welcome to do that. I'm actually going to post this link for you in the chat box so that if you're interested, you can find it there. Right, so let's put that in the chat box. It's been a long session and I appreciate that everyone has sat through this with great interest. Oops, okay, I can't seem to post the link here. Let me try that one more time. I can see some comments coming in. This is a good place for you to connect with each other if you'd like to, if you're not already connected. So thank you, Manula. That's very kind of you. We are from the same professional network, and thank you for your help with the voice note today. So yes, okay, I can see collaborations already taking place. Everyone's posting their connections. So with that, since there are no questions, there are a lot of comments. Thank you very much, everyone. Until we see you next month with our very first segment on continuing professional development, which is the first part of our publication. I appreciate your time, everybody, tonight. Good night and good day, wherever you are in whatever part of the world. Bye for now.
Bye.
Have a good rest.